All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another webinar from NinjaOne. I'm Jonathan Crow. I'm Director of Content and Community here at Ninja. Great to see some folks rolling in. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday. Hopefully it's cool wherever you guys are calling in from. And we're here to talk about backing up remote and hybrid clients for fun and profit. So we're going to be talking about backup today. We're going to be focused on sales and marketing, which is the area that we've heard time again folks are struggling with. Like, what's the biggest challenge? It's getting new clients. And so that's what we're talking about today. We're going to be giving you some advice to help you sharpen your sales pitch. Really excited to get some good material for you. I've also got some lovely folks here in our little bubbles here on the screen that I want to introduce you to. So as I said, I'm Jonathan Crow. You may recognize me from our MSP live chat series. Great to see a couple of familiar faces in the attendees already. We've also got with us Stephen Murphy. He's our Senior Technical Advisor, former MSP himself. Stephen, thanks for joining us all the way from the UK. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me, Jonathan.
Great to have you, sir, and you sharing your experience, your insights as a recent MSP yourself. And then we also have Nick DeStefano from our product marketing manager. Nick, thanks for joining us too.
Of course, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, and so Nick is going to be showing us some inside looks at Ninja's data protection offering, which some of you on the call may be familiar with, some others may not. So that's going to be happening a little bit later. So until we get to that portion, I think we're going to say we're going to send Nick back to the green room. Nick, we'll see you in just a bit. And before we dive in here, let's go over our agenda, but also some general housekeeping stuff. Hey, Mark. Hello, everybody. I'm glad that Mark's jumping on the chat. Feel free to jump in the chat here. For those of you who are new to this platform, this is called Welcome. This is something that we used with our MSP Security Summit, which we hosted back in the spring. And it's still a relatively new platform for us. But try it out. It's going to be familiar to a lot of these virtual event platforms that I'm sure you've used before. We definitely want this to be an interactive, engaging session. It's not just about PowerPointing you to death. We definitely want it to be interactive. If you've got questions or if you've got points to bring up, feel free. Dive into the chat. If you have some questions, there's also a Q&A option that you have right next to the chat. If there's, you can, of course, drop questions in the chat. We'll comment on those. But if you really have a burning question, if you put it in the Q&A, we'll make sure to get to it at the end. Yes, that's right, Mark, like a ninja. We also have some polls that we're going to be launching, so keep an eye out for those. And also, as always, yes, this session is going to be recorded. So if you can't make it for the full hour, we'll be following out with an email with the link to the recording and some good resources that we'll be sharing afterwards. So what are we going to be covering during this hour? First of all, we want to hear from you. So this isn't just about us blabbing away to you. This is a great opportunity for you to be talking with each other too. So we're going to be launching some polls to learn a little bit more about your own approaches to selling backup right now in this current new normal and everything. We're also then going to dive into a 4-step process for a better sales pitch. This is something I'm really excited that we put together. I think it's going to be hopefully helpful for some folks. I'm very curious to get your feedback on it. Then we're going to dive into some Ninja data protection examples. And so, like I mentioned, some of you may already, Ninja customers on the webinar here, you may already be using Ninja data protection and be familiar with it. Others may not. And so Nick is going to be coming back on and kind of showing some examples and tying those back to what we're talking about in terms of how you can maybe show off some of these things in your sales process. Then, of course, we're giving away $100 to a lucky person here on the webinar. Stay tuned to the end for the winner to be announced. And then, of course, we want to answer some Q&A. They're going to have a portion at the end where we'll make sure we get to any remaining questions, but don't wait till the end to ask questions, ask throughout. So with that, let's get into some things. This is my plug for Ninja Data Protection. We're going to send out a copy of this deck afterwards too. You'll see there's some links that are provided, and of course you can't click on them now, but when you get the copy of the deck, you will be able to. So we'll send out a copy of this deck. It's going to have a link here if you do want to check out Ninja Data Protection. You can see a short demo and learn more by clicking on this slide. Okay. So let's go to the polls because we want to know what's going on out there. Basically, we want to get a sense of a few things. How are you selling backup out there? Let's get a thing. Oh, let's see. I'm gonna stop my screen sharing for a second. There we go. Let's get a sense of where folks are at, and I'm gonna draw some polls here. You can access those. They should be there on your side panel. I've opened up the first one. I'm going to open up a few more. And while I'm doing that, Stephen, going back to your experience at your MSP, curious to hear kind of your approach to backup. The first question that we're launching here is, do you break out backup as its own line item for sales? Is this something that you guys did, or was this kind of just fully entrenched in your core offering?
I think like anyone in the MSP world, you've always got that transition from old plans, old subscriptions, services, etc. So we had a mix. In our per user plan, it was fully included. You don't get to opt out of this. In your kind of old legacy plans, yeah, it was definitely broken out as a line item. There were plenty of people who'd signed a waiver and said, I don't need backups. Scary
Sounds
as it
good.
is.
Well, no, and I appreciate that because I mean, there's always those things we hear, right? There's always the best practices. And then there's the real world, and everything is a journey. It's a process. So I appreciate seeing this kind of reflected here in the poll too, and interested to hear people if anyone wants to kind of elaborate in the chat too. Do you break it out? A lot of people do, and then of course it depends on plans. I'm interested from the breaking it out portion of it. If anybody here who answered yes wants to kind of elaborate, like what core things are you breaking out? Is it for example, like backing up Office 365 workstations? I'm kind of interested here because this is a common question we get: is what people's invoices look like. I know one common piece of good best practice advice is if you have things on a line item, that just means the client gets to point them and pick away at it, right? And so a lot of people will advocate, okay, don't do that. Just have your offering, and that's what it is, and don't get into the details unless people ask. Stephen, any comment on that piece of advice?
Yeah, it's definitely a great piece of advice, and we always found even when you put it in a plan, someone will go, "I don't want, you've broken it down on the invoice, and it says this is part of this block. I want it removed," and it's like it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Max, for in the chat here clarifying a little bit. Workstations and servers separate. O365 built in. Let's go to another poll here. I'm going to bring this one off screen and go into this one. How are you currently backing up end user workstations and laptops? So servers aside for a second, O365 aside. How are folks doing it? Almost half using cloud backup. Makes sense, right? I think a big portion we're going to talk about before we dive into that, the sales advice, is what is going on, like putting things firmly in the moment, right? This move to hybrid work, remote, having a lot of remote employees out there floating around outside the network, and how people are addressing that. Kind of no surprise to see a general trend with cloud backup being the big thing there. Any comments here, Stephen?
Yeah, pretty much what I was expecting. Great to see that some people are doing hybrid, which I think is a great plan, especially if you've got large data sets and you don't have the time to restore back from the cloud for it, when your full disaster recovery goes into flow. The what backup, I can also totally appreciate the people responding there that, sometimes customers do just dismiss it or that they're not interested at all.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to some of that too. How to address a little bit of that, and the amount of risk that you're taking on. The risk is either there, it's being outsourced to you, the provider, and I think the core thing that a lot of people are familiar with is even if you're not providing something, and even that's in your agreement, your customers are very forgetful, and they kind of assume you're doing everything. You're the IT guy, aren't you doing that? Okay, let's go one more poll here. Has the change to remote working impacted your methodology or your approach to backup? Kind of interesting to see. So, a lot of people, no, this really hasn't. Maybe this speaks to the fact that a lot of folks, have remote clients. I mean, this is kind of the whole name of the game, right? Setting up your services so you can provide them remotely. Kind of well equipped to deal with this already. See, I guess that's the positive way to think about to take these stats. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, I would be interested in the other, just if they want to pop it in the chat, if they're willing to disclose who they are. But yeah, it's great to see that a lot of people have obviously dealt with cloud-based solutions, or they've got a hybrid model going on. The sync-based solutions, I hope obviously there's other bits of backup going on there. But yeah, great to see a wide case adoption of let's get our clients covered.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to, I've got a couple other polls here that I'm going to launch in just a second. But going back to the do you break this out as a line item, or do you include it in? Obviously, this is the pricing isn't exactly the topic of the day here, but I just want to go off on the side just a little bit. Stephen, you and I in prep for this kind of talked about, okay, if you are building this into your core offering, this is part of your plan, it's packaged in. We mentioned that, okay, well, how do you deal with the pricing then? It could fluctuate from client to client. Without maybe getting into too much detail, do you want to talk a little bit about your general approach there? I know you're kind of looking at averages, but there's always outliers too.
Yeah, it always comes down to expectations with the customer as well. If you're seeing, you get X gigabyte included and anything above that's also chargeable, it makes the conversation a bit easier when you turn around and say, well, such and such an office over has their entire iTunes library backing up. They've got all their videos, films, pictures, iPhone backups, etc. And it's a horrendous file size to kind of burden for you as a customer. Can we exclude that? Does it really need to be backed up on the business side of things? you just have those conversations, but ultimately you are on a law of averages, and ultimately as long as you're falling within the plan, it's 100 gigabyte a workstation or whatever you've worked your figure out to be, you can work it out and make those costs work.
Absolutely, yeah. Curious, you did get a response from Nicole there. Thank you, Nicole, for giving some more details. And curious with people with pricing if that brings up any comments too. Okay, before we move forward, just two more polls, and this is just again to kind of set the stage and get a sense of where folks are at. Okay, so this one, let's open this one up here. Going away just from backup into sales in general, because that's what we're talking about here. This is to help you in the sales department, right? On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your ability to clearly differentiate your services? And then we've got a follow-up poll here that I'm going to go ahead and open. I'll bring on the screen in a second, about how often do you end up competing on price? So I'll give folks a second to fill in that. And the reason we bring this up is this is often a challenge that we hear about during our MSP live chat series. We've had several of those sessions that were devoted to helping folks out with sales in their sales process. And a guest that we would have on frequently is Alex Farling from Lifecycle Insights. And he would bring up this point a lot, that he talks with a lot of MSPs, goes to workshops, and this is a core challenge for folks, was how are they actually showing that they're different? And something that's beyond just that, hey, we really do care about our clients. We've got top rate, fast service response times. Our people are our differentiator. Things like that a lot of people can kind of do. Beyond kind of vertical specialization, I think there's a big challenge here. So that's kind of what we've heard. Reflecting a little bit here on the poll, but good to see some people are pretty confident about this. So those of you who are responding, the 4s, and then number 5, I definitely want to hear from you if you're comfortable with it. What makes you confident about this? Is there something that you don't have to go away your secret sauce here, but are you specializing in a vertical? Are you able to differentiate that way? What are some things that you could share with maybe some of the others here? Let's go on to this poll too. How often do you end up competing on price? It's not never. It's not always. Somewhere in the middle of the road. That makes sense. We're seeing people say sometimes almost never. Okay. Again, the almost never person, people would love to hear from you, especially as we go through some of these sales recommendations. Like I said, we'll be giving some advice and sharing advice from some experts, But if you feel like you're obviously in a good position here where you're able to go into deals and win them, you're not competing on price, you're able to clearly differentiate. We want to hear from you. Chime in. Let us know what's working for you. All right. Yeah, and then of course Geo is definitely going to factor into this, Max, for sure. And Stephen, I know, brings this up a lot too with the UK. Things are certainly different Geo to Geo, so that's something worth considering as well. Okay, we got to move it along here, but thank you everybody who responded to the polls. We're going to leave those open, so if you still want to go back to them and answer them, that's great. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring back up my screen and let's get back to it. So thank you, everybody. That definitely helps set the stage here, give some good context with where you guys are at. So a lot of this stuff, I think we can move through this first section a little bit quicker because a lot of you have not had to really adapt to this new environment with the hybrid workflow and some of the challenges that have come up. I think it is worth pointing out just because it's something that we do see, at least maybe not so much on the MSP side, but the end users, the clients, really still grappling with the fact that, and of course this varies industry to industry, but hybrid work, it's really not going away. People are coming back into the office to some degree, but it's staggered. Employees, obviously from this survey that we're sharing here, this is from our hybrid work in 2022 report that surveyed, I believe, about 500 professionals working in finance and government, I believe. And less than 10% of employees want to go back to 5 days a week in the office. Maybe not a surprise. That's not what they want to do. And whether employees are listening to that or not is a different question, obviously. But I think it drives home the fact that this is not, this is what we're hearing everywhere, right? These are not just temporary changes. And so curious to hear in the chat, you mentioned in the poll, you haven't really changed your approach to backup. Maybe there's some other things you've had to adapt, or maybe you're fully ready for this. Stephen, I know this is something that you guys saw firsthand, and that you continue to help folks out with here in your capacity at Ninja. But this has impacted some service. It's presented some service delivery challenges. Everything that goes hand in hand with there being fewer endpoints physically in the office on the company network, within that ring fence, and rogue things going on out there in the world. So anything you want to say here, like revolving like your own challenges with some clients, and really some of the challenges this provided to you guys?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously when COVID kicked off, you often had a client base that were fixated around the office, being physically in a building. You've got to turn up to a call center or a multi-story building and away you work. Jumping over to VPN, you often found that they didn't have the adequate internet connection links, or they didn't have the right VPN licenses for the firewalls, etc., and they couldn't cope with that capacity. So yeah, it's been a bit of a challenge for everyone, I think, with what the new kind of lay of the land is when everyone has to work from home. Even when you've got to shut the office for a week or two for a deep clean, and we've got to have people come in and sterilize the building because effectively we're looking at someone's had a potential for COVID, or there's been proven COVID in the building. And you're back to the situation again where the VPN links suffer. You're then trying to back up on-site servers, and then you find the capacity just isn't enough, and you've got a lead time of 90 days plus to kind of get a new link in. It's been an interesting challenge, especially in the MSP world for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing, at least stateside, a little bit less of those other situations you're describing, and people are coming back in to varying degrees, but very much depends on industry, on region, all those things. But definitely presenting specific changes and this idea that it's not a temporary thing. This just keeps going on and on. And so the big question is, and here we go. Yeah, presenting other challenges where employees are out there not always making data protection easy. But the big thing is, have all service providers kind of kept up pace with this, and how have they handled it? I think a lot of people here would probably agree that they see the opportunities that come in. A lot of times you're seeing opportunities from people who have been burned, right? Like they're not happy. They're looking for a new provider for a reason. Maybe there was things they thought were happening that wasn't. Maybe there's a big issue. Maybe there's a security incident. Maybe there's data loss issues. For some reason or another, they're not happy. Their other provider dropped the ball, and now they're coming to you looking for another option. There's also whether that's the case or whether it's another type of situation with the client. I think that the big thing is you have to establish trust, right? You have to clearly show that, hey, you're not just another red shirt. You're the Captain Kirk out here. And so how do you do that? That's kind of what we want to get into with this next section of the webinar. We want to give you some tips for that. And how are we going to do that? It's not just coming from us. We've looked into some advice from some top experts. Two of them. One of them, Kyle Hanselman, probably a lot of people here on the call are familiar with, CEO, co-founder of Huntress. He's all over in the channel with Huntress with the great work they do for the community. Also, if you've seen Kyle present, he's just a really good speaker. He's definitely worked on his presentations. He's a great salesperson in that it never seems like he's overtly selling. Lots of great stuff to learn from him that we're going to dive into. And then we have April Dunford. And April, maybe fewer of you are familiar with her because she's not so focused in the channel, right? She is primarily a B2B marketing consultant, and her specialty is in positioning. So why does that matter? Well, going back to that differentiation point, I know that the folks here in the call, sounds like you're ahead of some other of your peers. You're pretty confident in we can differentiate ourselves pretty well. But we hear it time and time again. This is actually a struggle for others. So if you're one of the folks on the call who is kind of struggling at this point, a key around that is positioning. And so that's what April is all about. She's got a link here that I can throw in the chat in just a second once I start blabbing, come up for air for a minute. But she has a framework around positioning, and this is primarily to help B2B startups, but I think it equally applies to an MSP as well. I'm not going to go through all of these 5 things. You can dive into this link and check it out afterwards. I highly recommend that you do. But really the first 3 of them are kind of built around defining what makes your own services special. And then the last 2 are about helping make sure that you're targeting the right types of customers. So we've got Steven here in the chat mentioning that they have several verticals they specialize in. He's currently the only service provider that can really offer the types of services that one of those verticals needs. That's a great thing of where this last 2, identifying who are the customers that really care most about what you can provide that others can't, and then what market are they in. It's about finding that kind of target product market fit, or in this case, services market fit. But the first 3, kind of more relevant to our discussion here. If you're going to develop your positioning and show that you're different, April breaks that down into these components here. You got to address competitive alternatives, and this doesn't mean slinging mud, bad mouthing the other shop down the street. It just means identifying what are the other options, and one of those other options is going to be doing nothing, right? Like having the in-house, someone's nephew handling IT, or having a bunch of employees kind of managing things. There's a few different options there, but sitting down and defining what those competitive alternatives are is an important thing, because then you can kind of start setting yourself apart from them. How do you do that? You look at your own key unique attributes, and these are the things that people can kind of struggle with. What features, capabilities do you have that alternatives don't? In Steven's case, with the vertical specialization, it's pretty clear. But if you don't have that distinct vertical niche that you're going after, that you can really kind of carve out there, this may be a little bit more of a challenge. We're going to get into some tips there. And then finally, value. Everyone talks about okay, yeah, you need to sell on value, right? The value of your services, really make that clear. How does that actually look? What's it look like? How do you do it? That's something that we'll get into a little bit more in just a second. Okay, so that's our first portion of the recipe. The second one is Kyle's. What advice are we going to get from Kyle? So Kyle, in addition to being Mr. Hacker Man, the very smart cybersecurity expert, as I mentioned, also just a very good speaker. And another proof point for this is for those of you who are familiar with the channel program, it's a new kind of MSP community, I guess you call it, set up recently. I think just kind of got going this year. And they've set up a monthly challenge where they invite vendors to come in and do sales pitches, and the audience of MSPs vote on the winner. Well, Kyle went on in June. He took home the title of the channel pitch champion. And so that's him over there with his championship belt. I'm sure he'll be thrilled that I'm using this picture. What was his formula? What did he win with? Well, he did a little bit of thing where instead of just pitching Huntress, he said, well, okay, what does a great pitch look like? And he had a formula for it. So that formula, for those that, like, if you can't really see with the screenshot here, Kyle, being his technical hacker self, is of course putting it in this format. But basically, his formula is a sexy intro that establishes that unique credibility. Number two, talking about a simple, relatable problem that's causing real pain. So it's something the audience will pay actual money to make it go away, right? Number three is offering a valuable solution. Number four, providing some immediate value. So something memorable, some kind of memorable education, and or a free resource that's truly valuable. It has actual value. And then finally, a kick-ass CTA. So those are the two kind of things we're going to mash up together. What ties it all together? How can you actually translate that high-level advice into helping your own pitch? Well, we got a cheat sheet for you. And so we've broken this down into 4 steps. I'm gonna whip through these things, and then we're going to open it up to some more discussion. And we're also going to show you around Ninja data protection. So stay with us here. All right. So step 1. And again, like for those on the call who you're feeling pretty good about your sales outreach and your conversations, like jump in. Let me know if you're thinking like, yeah, we totally do this, or like, no, I would do this differently. But here we go. So we have 4 steps. Step number 1, establish your unique credibility. So what is that all about? It's not just about listing all your accolades and bragging about yourself. It's making it clear that you understand their situation better than anyone else. Again, going back to Steven's point, the verticalization, specialization point, like that makes things easy, right? You can show that you have niche expertise. So again, I'm going to be sharing these slides after the fact. I'm not going to read through these examples here, but you'll have these examples, and maybe you can cut and paste them and use them and switch anything out you want to. But maybe they also just get you thinking about how you're delivering your own kind of sales presentations, and maybe this will be helpful. But basically, you want to just make it clear right off the bat. Listen, you've been doing this for a long time, or if you've just gotten started, you've been doing it with people just like the person you're talking with. You just want to make it clear that you've got some niche expertise. You want to make it clear that there's some social proof that you can provide. Can you refer to some clients that the prospect that you're speaking to knows? Do you have some name recognition? It could even be locally. It doesn't have to be kind of like a big brand, right? Can you reference that? Can you reference the fact that a lot of people trust you? Because again, that's the whole point, is really as quickly as possible getting this idea that you're a trusted resource, and not just a trusted resource, but you've actually worked with people just like your audience, and you're well qualified. You know their problems, the challenges. You've helped solve them with plenty of other companies. And so you're trying to establish your niche expertise, your social proof, and underscore the value. And so the line here we have is like, we've saved our clients X amount in downtime. So the point about value here is it's not just the value you think that you provide, it's the outcomes, right? Like you're providing, tying your services to what's important to the prospect, Can you put this in a business value term, in a monetary term? None of this stuff is very new for you guys, I'm sure, but good high level advice. So step number 2, you surface pain points that your prospect relates with. So here's something I wanted to get people in the chat's thoughts on. A lot of times when I've seen people provide advice around this or helpful materials, there's always stats, right? Like, yeah, use stats. People love a good stat. They love a good number. The bigger, the better. The scarier, the better in a lot of cases. And I actually wanted to propose something else. I've seen other people say, well, okay, yeah, stats can be useful, of course, but even better is a relatable anecdote. Because the problem is when you get into some of these like average costs of ransomware is $1 bajillion, these large numbers, it kind of seems astronomical. And for a lot of smaller business owners, it may seem like, that's interesting. This isn't really hitting close to home for me. The sharing the latest CrowdStrike alert that they've spotted a new threat actor kaiju off the coast of the Philippines they're calling Wizard Ghost Termite. That's not really going to hit home for a small business owner the same way. And so you got to keep in mind that a lot of things that you're seeing cybersecurity vendors put out there, their audience is not always the same as yours. They're targeting some bigger companies. They're using some different tactics that may not apply to the discussions that you're having with your own small business owners in your local area. So what's a better way to do it? Bring it home. Make it relatable. Reference if you've gotten recently some clients that is, you're talking with a law firm. You've gotten another law firm recently who came to you who was in a really bad situation. It doesn't have to be catastrophic. It's not like they had to have a super intense ransomware scenario that almost put them under. But maybe they experienced some data loss that really put them in a bind for a while, and they came to you and you were able to help them out. Make it real. And so here's some of the examples that we came up with. And Steven, I'm going to take a breath from blabbing for a second and let you chime in here, because I know you've seen these, and we're kind of talking leading up to the call here. What are some scenarios that you've run into where this clicks with folks? Like, oh yeah, like this actually would be a problem. I'll let you chime in here.
So definitely one of the more interesting ones I had during COVID. Everyone's aware of the channel delays. Your distributors are, in some cases, months, if not years out from fulfilling orders. We had a server failure over the Christmas period, and we had Veeam. We were quite happily backing up. All of the tests were successful, but during the Christmas period, the server completely failed. We weren't able to access the Veeam data store. No physical servers were available at any distributor, so we tried all the typical UK distributors. We tried everything we could to get a hold of hardware, and we were told, right, you've got 90 days until we can ship you a server. So in my particular experience, the Ninja backup software at that point did save us. We were able to say to this client, yeah, we're not doing servers anymore. You're going fully to the cloud, and we were able to take that system level image backup, download it, and get it straight to a connection where we could upload everything to SharePoint and get them rolling with Intune, etc. And that really was a hard-hitting save for us. Without it, their production would have been down and out for the count until someone had managed to salvage or scavenge some hardware from somewhere. It's one of those things where you just kind of can't predict, I can't get anything from Dell, HP, Lenovo, no one has anything. It's a scary thought for a business owner, and that is relatable. Again, with ransomware, everyone's aware of someone who's been hit. It might be a business down the road. It might be a print shop who's got a friend, the next county over. But they're all aware of someone who has been down for the count, and they've had days to restore. Being able to kind of discuss that, have a plan, I've got a solution, and then you're given the value proposition here. We've had customers who've had this, and it takes this to restore. We've got experience. We can bring our experience to the table, and you can sell that to the customer. They want to know that you're confident in that solution, that you've used it. It's had a real world application.
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to make it real. You want to bring it home for sure. And a key part of that too is not just, so using those relatable anecdotes, but also the trick here is to get the prospect kind of thinking through, what does this scenario look like? Letting them imagine it with their own particular scenario. What would this like? What would happen? What would the consequences be? What would the impact be if you were out of commission for X amount of time? How much would that cost? And of course, those are things that you can refer back to later. But you're getting the customer to really imagine this for themselves. All right. I'm going to pick up the pace here a little bit. So step number 3, now that you've established, gotten on the same page, okay, yes, there's the pain, right? Of course, now you want to present your own, the value of your solution here. You've got a solution, but you want to connect the value to the pain. And so you're setting the stage here for not competing on price, basically establishing the value of what you're offering. And I'm sharing here, of course, the shot in the iPhone ads that haven't seen much recently, but were everywhere for a while in some earlier iPhone releases. And the reason I bring this up is, that making the point that Apple didn't, when they launched this, they weren't listing their specs. They were selling the photo, not the pixels, right? So it's basically selling the outcome. So they showed everyone that they could be a photographer. That's how you sell on value is you're selling outcomes. Okay, so going back to April's idea of walking through kind of like positioning yourself in the competitive marketplace, right? So this part of the process, you can go through this. You can kind of like help the prospect cross off competing alternatives without going through without throwing mud and being nasty about competitors specifically. But you can frame it this way. We talk to companies like yours every day. We know the other approaches people are taking. Let's kind of walk through some of those. And as you do, maybe you point out some of the pros in some of those approaches, but you can also point out the cons. So some using, we know some folks are sticking with non-prem approach. Investing in hardware in new locations, obviously that's costly. It requires additional maintenance. You can address the file syncing solution that some people have gone on to and kind of get into okay, yes, that can work in these instances, but it really doesn't cover you in a true way, true backup solutions offer. And then, of course, there's the doing nothing approach, just hoping for what's best. And again, you can kind of bring up that and mention, like you did at the top of the hour here, Stephen. It's usually after they're asking clients to sign liability release forms, which is a big red flag. And then quickly after that, you can basically tee up your approach as a painkiller. And the classic sales advice here is to offer aspirin, not vitamins. And really what that means is you want to position your solution as your offering is not an optional benefit, right? You're addressing a real pain, and so you're kind of presenting, okay, those are the competitive, those are the approaches we've seen. What would a best solution for you guys look like? Let's kind of walk through that, and you can do this in more of kind of a theoretical way, but basically addressing those pain points. And then you want to bring it home with, okay, that's our approach. Here's what we offer. Here's some specific things that we can really provide you. And the goal here is you're painting a picture of what solving the pain looks like. You're making it specific. You're revisiting those pain points that you settled on before. And then you're showing them, here's where we can take you. Here's where you are today. Here's those pain points you're suffering from. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. What that's costing you. Now let's look at, okay, here's exactly how we can help you alleviate that pain. And again, you're not just kind of selling your approach here. You're also laying the groundwork for establishing your value and being able to leave the prospect with, okay, here's our price range, and not have them balk at it too much, or at least have justification for where that price is coming from. Okay, last step, number 4, providing the irresistible CTA. So this is something that I'm going to drop another poll because I'm curious. So a lot of providers that we see, having something of a clear next step. One lever that we see some people offering, of course, is assessments. And so I'm curious whether people charge for assessments or not. Bring this up on screen. do you charge for assessments? Because when we're talking about that killer CTA, that next step, it could be as simple as, okay, let's the next step is for us to have another call, or us to come on site, do a more thorough assessment, give you, before we offer you kind of like what our solution is going to be. We want to be able to see what we're working with here. And the way I've seen people do this varies, and it's thank you everyone for chiming in on this poll here. We're kind of seeing it reflected here. I've seen some folks say, okay, yeah, there's value here. We're not just going to give it away because we want to establish that our time is money. And so we're going to charge for it. But then we also are going to say, if you sign with us, we'll count it towards the first month of your managed services agreement, or we'll count it towards project work. Stephen, I know that you were saying that you kind of took that latter approach.
Yeah, it's more, you don't want to devalue your time, and often they'll see like a free assessment or just the foot in the door. It's valueless at that point. It does win some work, but I often found that when we did the free assessments, we would get the wrong type of customers, and they just never really kind of took the hints and tips on board.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and it's interesting to see. I mean, at the same time, offering that free next step, that's something that makes the whole point of here, that your killer CTA, you want to make the next step as easy as possible. So I can see some pros and cons there. But yeah, interesting. Thank you everybody for timing in the poll here. I'm going to print that off screen and bring my deck back up. But basically, you want to, again, like with your CTA, you just want to, again, drop, take the opportunity to reemphasize your value, to reemphasize your differentiation, and really kind of bring it home for people and make the next step, whatever that is, whether it's an assessment or whether it's having another call to really go through the particulars of your agreement, just making that as easy as possible. Okay, so to recap, step one, establish your unique credibility. Why are you the person that they should absolutely be talking with? Why are you Captain Kirk and not a red shirt? Step two, surface the pain points that your prospects are relating with. Really make them kind of envision it and feel that pain. Step three, showcase the distinct value of your solution. And step four, provide them with, make the next step as easy as possible, as enticing as possible. Okay, with that, I want to make sure that we have some time to announce our winner, to answer some questions. But before all that, we want to dive into showing you some things in Ninja, showing you some features from Ninja Data Protection. And maybe these are some things that you can highlight and kind of weave into your sales conversations, either with prospects. If you're looking, everyone's talking about you should absolutely be raising rates. If you're looking for opportunities to do that, maybe there's some things you can highlight here when you're having those conversations, or the conversations you're having with new prospects when you want to bring them on board. So with that, I'm going to bring Nick back onto the screen. I'm going to take mine off, and Nick, I think it's we'll leave it up to you to walk through those features here in Ninja.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Jonathan. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit of New York hyperdrive right here. But just like Jonathan mentioned, there's basically going to be 4 things I want to show you guys. First, we're going to go over one of these kind of cool free features that we have in Ninja, which is our self-service portal for your end users and customers, which you can set up as a fully branded experience. As you can kind of see here, there's a little teaser of what that may look like. So the more end users, obviously, that you have set up, basically have their own access set up in their self-service portal, the less tickets you have for your technicians for relatively simple tasks, which overall will save your technicians time and allow them to tackle those more important tickets way more efficiently. So from a end user standpoint, there's about 2 tasks that I'm going to show you here. And the first one is going to be able to do a file restore by themselves. So the first one, let's just say your end user, they already know what they need. They know where to find it. They don't need to make a ticket, and they just want to get something done on their own. So what they can basically do here is navigate to their devices. As you can see, they have their device here. They would go over here, click into that backup manager button. And like I mentioned, let's say they already know where to go. So they're going to go over here, let's just say go to your workstation. They know it's in their C drive. They're going to scroll all the way down here to that frequently changing file. This is the file that they do need. So they're going to click on here. And as you can see, when you click, you have that download button there for the end user. they can go ahead, basically click download. They can select the revision that they want. Let's say they need Monday's version. They can click right there, hit download, and there is the file that they basically restored all by themselves. They don't even need your technicians for this. Now, let's say that is a little bit more of a complex request, and they do need to set a ticket, send you guys a ticket basically to request, let's just say, a file restore, which will lead right into our second example. So they can kind of go over here to ticketing. This is where they'll be able to see all the tickets that they create. But for this example, we'll go ahead, we'll create that ticket. And then they have the option here to select from a form. So this is important. Say they select the file restore request. And the important part here, as you can see, these four fields kind of added, and with the asterisks, they're required. Now, the important part is because obviously by using this form, we're requiring sets of information right up front that can really greatly reduce the back and forth between your end user and your technicians, and giving them everything that they need to complete the request in a timely manner. So let's say, it's a critical, let's say they're looking for a specific file, like that. Let's say the file path, they know exactly where to go to get it, and they just need you to go get it for them. It's going to be in backup storage. Let's say the revision date, they know they have a file back from March that they absolutely need. So they'll select the revision date there, and then they're going to ask you where to nicely place the device, let's say on a new device that they need this file. They'll go over here, they'll write a subject, let's say restore file, put in description, just, I need file test.txt restored to my new device, and they'll go ahead and submit that ticket there, right? So now hopping over to your end, which is basically how you can show how to restore data to a new device. So we'll pop over here. Now, you're operating from your end, and let's just say in this example that the device that they asked for a restore. Their current device needs, some work done. It's going to be unusable. However, they really need a particular file to work on their new device. And then overall, just taking a step back, this feature basically helps to minimize downtime in the event a device, say, A, needs a bare metal restore, or just to get that much needed file quickly to an end user. For the sake of time, I'll just showcase the file restore on a separate device, but just know that you can do both. So first, let's say you're going on your end, you're going to go to ticketing. You see that request right here, restore file. You'll click here. This is all the information you need to access. It tells you where it is, what the device is, who requested it. And then as you can see what we filled out before, here's all that information that they need for their file request. So what you would do here basically is you can go in here, you'll click on that device. You'll go right here to this backup manager icon. You go manage backups. And like I mentioned before, based on all the information they already gave us, we already know where to go for all this. So we'll go to File and Folder. We know it's in the C drive. They mentioned it's in backup storage, and they need that test.txt file. Now, when you select it, you have the download option, which would allow me to download it directly to my device, or now you have that restore option. So you can click Restore here. They mentioned they need that file for March 22nd, so we'll click that in there. We're going to keep this as skip, and we're Restore to. So, as you can see, this name matches this name, which is the device they're currently on, and as mentioned in the example, they need it placed to their new device. So we're going to click there, and they nicely asked us to place it in a specific spot, so we're going to go down to the C drive. They want us to go to Users. They asked us to go to Pete here, Documents, Restore. Now, as it's preparing the restore job, you can basically see here, once this is complete, you'll see a loading bar. Basically there, it'll say 100%, and once it gets to that point, you're going to see that it was basically restored to the specific place that they asked for it. There we go. Close and continue. Now, based on those first two examples, we went over the self-service portal and doing a restore. Now, I want to show you guys kind of choosing between file and folder and image backups. So we do deliver both options, which overall allows you to effectively manage kind of your RTO needs versus your storage costs. And the biggest difference here, as many of you know, is the file and folder is going to be much smaller compared to the image backup, which is going to be much larger. As you can see here, here's a quick example. File and folder backups only take up about 1.25 gigs, whereas image is almost 45 total gigs. Now, file and folder backups are going to be kind of more effective for most end user workstations. So I'm going to walk through that example first. And let's just set the stage here. Let's just say, you're a dentist and you need to keep certain files for compliance reasons. They probably wouldn't be stored this way, but let's just say, for example, you need PNG files of your patient's x-rays for a full year for compliance reasons, but you also want to set up a standard backup for all your other files, but you only need those, let's say, for about 30 days to keep. So the first thing we're going to go here, let's just say we're going to search here for our Windows workstations. We're going to go over here, we're going to go to backups, and we're going to create both of those file and folder backup plans here. So the first one, file and folder, again, this is going to be for those x-rays for compliance reasons. So we'll do patients for 1 full year. We're going to set that the schedule as daily. Let's say we want to do it kind of, pretty early in the morning as to not disturb anything, but this is super important. So we're going to want to select all of these power options. We don't want to miss any of these. When it gets to revisions, let's say we're going to get rid of the limit revisions because we need all of them for a full year. We're going to trim those revisions older than a year since we only need the full year, and we're going to leave this last one unselected. We're going to push it to the cloud only. Next, we're going to jump over to folders. So let's say we know exactly where those PNG files are going to be. They're going to be in the C drive. So we only need this first backup for the C drive. We're going to go in here. We're going to select include folder, and we're going to put that exact folder path so this backup knows to look for the C drive for those files. Now, the final step is setting those filters. It's automatically going to be set to exclude, but we just want those PNG files. So we're going to do include only these files. We're going to go over here to add. We're going to put PNG. We're going to hit enter. We're going to hit add and save. That handles the first part of the file and folder backup. Now, we're going to want to do everything else. Go to file and folder again. We're going to say, name this maybe, remaining patient data. We're going to go over here. We're going to say, we can do this weekly. We don't need it as frequently. Let's say we'll do it Monday mornings at about 5 a.m. And regarding, and we don't really need to be as kind of robust with our power options. So we can select kind of the first one, although we don't need the other two. Now the point here is also, in this case, is we're trying to balance the data loss prevention against storage costs. So we're going to want to keep only, say, 30 revisions, but we're going to want to trim anything older than, let's just say, 90 days, which is eventually going to cut back on the amount of data that we're storing. Final step here, we're going to leave this open, keep it as the cloud. We'll jump over to those folders. Now, since we already included the C drive, we're going to want everything else. So let's just say we'll select common. We're going to select everything else here. Save. We'll go over to the filters. Now, since those PNG files are already included in the first one, we're going to leave this as exclude. Add. We'll add those PNG there and there. There you go. So that's all for the file and folder. Now, let's just say, for example, we want to jump over to, you need 2 image backups as well, right? You need some servers that need to be backed up additionally. So we'll go in here. We're going to look for those Windows servers. We'll select this here. We're going to go to backups, and this one we'll do some image backups here. So with the image backup, we're backing up a lot of data, a lot more data than the file and folder as we saw before. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to limit where we can. And since this is a server, we'll do basically 2 image backups. One we'll do in the cloud, and another we'll do locally. So for the cloud version, we'll go up here. Let's just say server backup 1. We'll set this as a schedule of weekly. We'll do this, let's say Sundays at 5 a.m. For the power options, we're going to want this. We basically, we want this to get the data offsite, but we don't necessarily want to spend all of our money on cloud storage. So first, we're going to do that. For the power options, we're going to set here. We'll do basically prevent the device from sleeping and run immediately if missed. For the revisions, we're going to deselect limit. However, we will trim any revision older than 30 days since we do want to make sure that we're focusing on specific data that we want. For the partitions, we'll do all. Cloud destination, we'll keep that as backup destination, we'll keep that as the cloud. So for the second one, we'll go in here, Basically, same concept, only a little differently. As we know, this one we're going to be locally, so we're going to want to, we kind of keep it as daily. We'll do it in off hours as well. For the power options, we'll just leave prevent device from sleeping, as it's not as critical as the other one. For the revisions, we're going to take these off, but since it's local and we want to focus on faster restores, let's say we'll trim this down to about 14 days. We're going to do the partitions as all, and as mentioned, we're going to do local only. Save this here, and there you go. Now, for the final one, basically what we want to do, obviously we walk through all these different steps, but we want to make sure that we're staying on top of all of our backups, making sure there are no issues, right? So the final step I want to walk you through is setting up proactive monitoring and alerts that basically notify you when a backup fails or is at risk. This is important, it allows you to stay on top of those critical tasks and allows you to be more proactive rather than reactive, saving yourself and your customers time, money, and pain. So first, let's say we'll jump over here. Now, we're out here before we set up any type of alerts, we can kind of see and check manually if there's any issues. So let's say software development Inc. right here. We see there's a failed Ninja backup. We want to investigate that a little bit more. We're going to click in here. We'll see that this device, this Mac desktop, is the one with the failed Ninja backup. We can click. We'll do this drop-down menu here. We see those warnings. And this one failed because there's no full disk access, right? So there's one way to do it. Now, rather than doing it manually, we want to set up those proactive alerts. So let's say we'll go in here. We'll go to our policies. We're going to go to admin. We'll go to policies. Let's say we want to relook at those Windows workstations. We're going to click in here. We're going to go to activities. We're going to go to Lockhart here. And we have right here, backup job failed. So you can click in here and fill out this information. This is going to help you set that up. Severity, major, critical. You can click anything from the drop-down. Priority, same, high, medium, low, whichever is most important to you. The channels are going to be what you set up on your end, which basically shows you which channels, when you select send notifications to notify technicians, that they will get alerts in. Right here, I have selected the IT and Slack and our help desk email, so they'll get alerts in both. You could send those notifications to those technicians. And then, since we'll probably want to troubleshoot, we're going to want to go ahead and do default activity rule for ticketing. You're going to hit save. That'll be that. And that is just a few of the use cases that that commonly arise that should help you kind of briefly showcase the potential of Ninja's backup solution to your customers or potential customers. Jonathan, back to you.
Thanks so much, Nick. You whizzed through that. That was awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. Anyone on the call here, if you're a Ninja customer, you're interested in discussing backup, looking through that a little bit more, reach out to your account manager. They'll be happy to walk you through things. Also, like we mentioned, we'll be sharing the deck right after, actually probably tomorrow. We'll send it on email. Or later in the week with a copy of the deck and some of these links to additional resources. You can you go in, even if you're not a Ninja customer, you can go follow these links and learn a little bit more. The reason we wanted to show you some of that stuff is, of course, you're not going to be going through all that with your prospects or your current clients, but there are some features there that can maybe help you make the point that, hey, what we're offering is more reliable. It's more proactive and more flexible. It's a better fit for your current situation. So with that, let's make sure that we get to this important business here. For all the folks who've stuck with us, thank you so much. Christine, let's give away a gift card.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. I'm here for the fun stuff. So if we can all pop in the chat and say a huge congratulations to, drum roll please, Alan Hellbush. Congratulations, Alan. Be on the lookout for an email from me so I can get that gift card out to you. And that's it from me, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine. And Alan, congratulations. Some good, I think it was $100 coming your way for some last minute summer stuff or back to school shopping, whatever you need. But congratulations. So guys, we're right at the top of the hour. Didn't really leave a lot of time here. If there are any pressing questions, I will definitely give you a minute to put those in the chat here. If you have any questions, technical ones about Ninja data protection, obviously you can feel free to reach out, like I mentioned, to your account manager, or respond to the email that we're going to be sending out. that email again is going to have the deck. It's going to have some links to some additional materials that I reference, Kyle's sales pitch formula, April Dunford's framework for positioning. Hopefully this stuff, even if it's not new to you, gets you kind of thinking about this, gives you some helpful stuff to incorporate when you're constantly iterating on your sales pitch and having these conversations. The more at bats you can get, the better. The more that you go over this stuff, the more natural it'll become, and the better outcomes I think you'll get. So hopefully this is helpful. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your day. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Christine, everybody on our end. There's going to be more webinars absolutely to come. Oh, we do have one quick question. Can the backup solution take backup of MS SQL databases? I believe the answer is no on that one at the moment, but Stephen or Nick, you want to correct me if I'm wrong there?
So you would be able to capture it using the system image, but in terms of being able to directly restore like a point in time, no. It is up for discussion with products though, so keep posted and we'll give you an update as soon as we hear anything.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, any other questions? We can probably have another minute here. Thank you, Arvin, for asking that. Otherwise, just to keep you in the know here, we have customer partner office hours. They're to be coming on for Ninja customers. We got more webinars coming that way. We're also going to be launching a new webinar series that kind of takes the place of our MSP live chats here in North America. And going to be teaming up with Stephen and some other folks who recently joined the team, including Gavin Stone of MSP Geek fame. And so we're very much looking forward to that. I see, Anthony, you asked one more question. We'll get to yours and then, two questions. Perfect. So we'll get to yours, Anthony, and then I think we'll cut this webinar and bring it to a close. So let's see. So any storage space limitations, and then you give an example here. Nick or Stephen, who wants to address that one? How about Stephen? You got anything there?
I believe there's a 5 terabyte limitation at the moment. If Pete's still on the call, he'd be able to also confirm.
Yeah, Pete's going to be coming back. We're going to have a replay of this webinar too in the evening for our West Coasters and anyone in Australia, New Zealand, Oceania. So we'll be making sure that we take note of these questions. Anthony, you have a tentative answer there, but we'll get back to you with details. All right, everyone, we're over time. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. And thank you again, everybody. Congratulations, Alan. We'll see everyone again soon, and keep an eye out in your inboxes for an email with all those good resources, including the deck. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.